Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news as we headline with Ten Hag shock transfer priority. I'm just laughing at the chat who are trying to figure out who that is on the thumbnail. A lot of people saying it's Dybala, it's not Dybala, so you're wrong on that, but we'll get into that as well. We're also going to talk about Cristiano Ronaldo and this FA charge, which has left Manchester United, not just Ronaldo, absolutely baffled as to why the FA are charging him for something that happened 6 months ago. Also, Ten Hag talking about Pep Guardiola ahead of this massive weekend. I'm going to be live at 12 o'clock for the North London derby, which I'm really excited for. I can't imagine how I'm going to feel tomorrow morning when it's the Manchester derby that we're waiting to tuck into on a Sunday lunchtime. Cannot wait for that. But it's great to have football back and ultimately very, very exciting. Also got an interesting email to tell you about that we got into through our website from Sean Finity. You're going to get a shout out, Sean, talking about American ownership and what they could do and like to do if they can't get the money to build a stadium. So we'll read that out. Think of it what you might. It is a fan forum. It is a community, and it's that's what it's all about. It's not speed on the thumbnail either. So look, let's fly into this. You may have missed this yesterday. I got sent this by Ryan, who works on our United Stand Twitter account, and said, yeah, I've not heard you mention this. Are you going to mention it? So yesterday, Rob Dawson sort of did an update on the situation with United. A lot of journalists have come back from the international break and they're talking about United. Welcome to the Members Club, Max Sood. He's been a member for 14 months. Give him a shout out. And effectively, the talk was that Man United are not going to sign players until the summer. They're going to ignore January, which is what Ten Hag wants, to buy a player in January. But basically what Rob Dawson said is that Manchester United are not put off by the public statements of Frenkie de Jong, and that he is still considered a high priority target for Erik Ten Hag, and that they still believe that a deal can be done with Barcelona. It leads to some I'm scratching my back, but it leads to some scratching of the head as to why Frenkie de Jong would still be a priority. It also leads to a shrug of the shoulders and a deep sigh, I've got to admit, because I have a theory on this that I want to bring, because my initial reaction was, can we not do this? Can we not have John Murtough flying to Barcelona again with Richard Arnold and looking like a couple of prats? Can we just like bury the Frenkie de Jong story and pretend it never happened? Because ultimately it was ridiculously embarrassing to spend all summer on a deal that was never going to happen by the sounds of it. But it's interesting because Manchester United are one thing, stubborn. With stubbornness comes naivety, some would say stupidity, but we do have a history of this. Victor Lindelof, I remember years ago, however long ago it was we bought Lindelof, I remember during the January transfer window doing a video saying that Manchester United really wanted Victor Lindelof and the deal was almost done. In February, it wasn't done and people were like, your sources are shit and this, that and the other. And I was like, well, you don't always get everything right, but it was good information. In the summer, we go and buy Victor Lindelof. So Bruno Fernandes, summer, the boat sank, didn't it? January, we go and buy him. Jadon Sancho, we spend all summer trying to get him. We don't get him, we go the following year. There are more examples of that, but United have got a long history, especially over the last 5 years, of trying to get a player, not getting them, sometimes embarrassing themselves, but then stubbornly staying in to go and get him in the next transfer window. So it wouldn't be unusual for Manchester United to stay focused on Frenkie de Jong. And certainly the noise is that Manchester United still are very much in that. And he was Erik Ten Hag's priority. And I wouldn't rule out that we will go back in for it. The question is, do you think we should go back in for it? And I've got to be honest, whenever anybody mentions Frenkie de Jong to me, I just feel really sort of sad inside, because I think of the T-shirts. I think about what we were told. I think of the lies. I think of the naivety of the club. I think of the way we got played. And I think we've got to move forward, not backwards. And Frenkie de Jong clearly doesn't want to leave Barcelona. So why would you waste one summer on him, let alone another one? Do we really want another Frenkie de Jong saga next year? But then you start to think, well, at the end of the day, if this is the player that Ten Hag is so obsessed about, then he obviously sees something in him that he doesn't see in anybody else. And Barcelona probably still want to get rid of him. And if he has to leave Barcelona, maybe he's happy to come to Manchester United. I'm loath to say, look, I just want to back the manager at the end of the day. But where I will come into this, and I'm interested to see what you've got to think. Do we think Ronaldo is going to come good this season again? He seems way off it at the moment. Is this the beginning of an issue for Man United? Is Fleury? I wouldn't write Ronaldo off yet, Fleury. Thanks for being a member for 21 months as well. Cupid says, God no, please God no. We don't need De Jong when McSauce is ripping it up, says Eddie Johnson. Well, I think you've thrown me into something here. I was thinking about this before I came live because I was going to go, oh, you know what? I don't like this story about Frenkie de Jong. I can well believe that United are still in for him because, as I just said, there's plenty of examples where we miss out and then we stay in the race for another year. But Donny van der Beek, I mentioned him on the international break. This is a player that I think has a massive month ahead of him. He is fit. He is ready to go. If he can't get into the team and play well in the next month, I think it's over for Donny at Manchester United. Whether he goes in January or whether he goes in the summer, I think it's over for Donny if he cannot prove that he can be a good replacement for Eriksen or Bruno when the time comes. And I mean, like, if Eriksen's out the team, Donny comes in and does the job well. Or if Bruno's out the team, Donny comes into the team and does the job well. If Donny comes into the team and does well and can do that job for the next 3 years, there's no need to go and buy Frenkie de Jong. If Donny van der Beek fails, and some people think he will, then that is where I think Frenkie de Jong becomes very valuable, because we need somebody who can do what Eriksen does from deep, which is link the play from the midfield to the attack. And Frenkie de Jong is clearly the player that Erik ten Hag wants to do that. I look at the signing of Casemiro and he's not Frenkie de Jong. That's just not his job. McTominay's not Frenkie de Jong. Fred is not Frenkie de Jong. Frenkie de Jong is basically very similar to what Christian Eriksen is. And we may well need a player like that next summer if it doesn't work out with Donny van der Beek. And that is the only reason I can see that Ten Hag and Man United would be obsessed enough to keep trying to get a player that basically mugged us off in the summer. So we'll have to wait and see. The summer's a long time away and we're certainly not going to be signing Frenkie de Jong in January. So we need to sort of park it till then. But I can see why we're looking for the profile of that player. I've heard a few people saying, well, we don't need De Jong now because we've got Casemiro and we've got Eriksen. But we have got no replacement for Eriksen, who is fundamental to that team. And we've seen that in the first few weeks of the season. So I think Donny is a player to keep an eye on over the next 6 weeks. If he doesn't break into that team and start performing well, and his future at United is over, then we need a player like that. And I think that might be why we go for Frenkie de Jong. Speaking of the Frenkie shirt, Mark, have you thought about auctioning it off for charity, says Glenn? Well, maybe I won't do it now because it might still become relevant. Why are we hunting a player who don't want to play for us? I fear a Di Maria situation, says Christian de Frost. And Frenkie de Jong, good riddance, says Robert. It's like a clicked a video from a few months ago, says Orion. So this is coming in from Rob Dawson of the ESPN, that Manchester United very much retain an interest and obsession for Frenkie de Jong, that they don't believe, or they're not put off by the public statements of de Jong that he only wants to stay at Barcelona, and that they will go back for him if Barcelona decide to sell him. So as I say, I think that there is a spot in that midfield for Frenkie, but only if it fails with Donny. So we'll have to just wait and see what happens over the season, won't we? But what I would say is, as well, I think the most important thing to say here is, before we move on to some other news about Ronaldo, is that we do need a player that can come in and do the Eriksen job, and we don't have anybody in the squad who can do it. There's nobody who can do it. So Donny's the only hope. And if he fails, then we would have to bring somebody in to do that, because there's absolutely no way that Christian Eriksen's going to play 90 minutes for 60 games every bloody year. We need to have somebody who can do that role. And I think Donny's the only one who can do it. And if he can't do it, you've got to bring a player in. But for me, midfield is not the priority next summer. You would still have to give Barcelona 60, 70 million pounds for Frenkie de Jong, which would be a massive proportion of your budget. And Frenkie de Jong would still want over 300 grand a week, which would be a massive proportion of your wage budget. So I look at the Manchester United side now, and I don't know what you think, get in the comments. I look at it now and I go, you know what? We need a centre-back, we need a right-back, we need a striker. Those three positions for me are more important than spending most of our budget on another midfielder. We need a centre-back that can play like Martinez and Varane, i.e. pace and ability to play a high line. We don't have that beyond Varane and Martinez. We need a right back that if Dalot gets injured, we actually have somebody who can play there. And we need a striker for obvious reasons as well. And many people are saying, well, we also need a goalkeeper, Mark. And some people might be saying we do need another midfielder. So that we're not in a position where we can just go and chuck massive money at one player in a position that's not necessarily what we want. Musical Smith says centre-back, backup, right-back and striker. They're the three for me. They're the three positions for me. Matt Hunt agrees, who's a member. Mark Searles is a member. Frenkie de Long-winded, says Mark. Can I just say as well, just as we're talking about the midfield, and I've just shouted out a couple of our members there, If you look in the live chat and you see a badge, that's a member of the United Stand Members Club. Thank you very much for supporting us. You can do that through the join button. But you don't just get a badge and emojis and things like that exclusive to you. You get a free video each week, exclusively for you to watch. Yesterday's video was a deep dive profile by me into Eriksen, looking at him this season, where he's been doing really, really well, how he differentiates from our other midfielders, and actually comparing him to De Bruyne in relation to passing ability. Really interesting video. It's only 10 minutes long, so if you are a member, check it out. If you want to be a member and support the channel and get exclusive extra content, check it out through the link in the live chat. We tried to cover both sides here, of course. That's what it's all about. We did have somebody in the chat there. I think it just whizzed by. They won't get the... oh, no. I don't think they will whiz by. I saw it. I saw it. Yusuf, we don't need a centre-back at all. Interesting, Yusuf. I love those statements that give no reason. I don't like porridge. I don't like red cars. We'd love to know, Yusuf, why? Why don't we need another centre-back at all? Are you in the Harry Maguire fan club? Do you think Victor Lindelof is the Swedish Van Dijk? Why do you think we don't need another centre-back? You're leaving us nowhere to go, Yusuf, to be honest, but we've read your line. Ostit, thank you and welcome to the Members Club. He's a new member. Mark, dreams, January, but realistic signing, says Will Fox. I think Gakpo. I think Gakpo, yeah. I think Gakpo's realistic in January. I think Southampton and Leeds are going to try and get him, and I think he fits a profile of a player that Ten Hag can. He's got that ability to step up and go up a level. I think Gakpo's very realistic. Yeah, tackle one issue at a time, sort the owners out, then people run the club and the scouting. Hopefully, then Ten Hag won't be stuck in the past, says Dale Way. But going back to what Yusuf said, we don't need another centre back. We do. We'll be all right this season, and maybe that's what Yusuf's on about. But next summer, we need another centre-back, because if you said... I always use Liverpool because they've got 4 centre-backs that are very similar. Van Dijk, Konate, Matip and Gomez. They're all mobile, and therefore, if any of them are injured, Klopp can still play the way he wants to play, which is high-line pressing. Ten Hag can... and isn't at the moment. He's playing counter-attacking, but he can move that line higher with Varane and Martinez because they're both capable of doing it. But if one of them get injured and you ask Harry Maguire or Victor Lindelof to stand on the halfway line and defenders are 2, they're going to be very vulnerable to that. So we need to bring in players that fit the profile of the team that we are. There's no point in buying Peter Crouch type target man if you're going to keep the ball on the ground. And Maguire and Lindelof are good centre-backs, but they don't fit the way that Ten Hag will want to play. That is why, Yusuf, I believe we need another centre-back in the summer. And I wouldn't be surprised if we tried to go back in for Timber, although we might not get him. Good morning, Mark. How's it going? How excited are you to have the Premier League back? Woohoo, says Alistair. Predictions for the game tomorrow, I think it's a draw. I've gone with 1-1 on my preview, Alistair. I did it on Thursday, and I'm very, very excited to have the Premier League back. Somebody mentioned Ronaldo a minute. Just want to bring you a bit of a story as well. I think it was from Samuel Luckhurst yesterday saying that Manchester United have got, or Cristiano Ronaldo has got until October the 10th to answer the charge of the FA charge that he received last week. Obviously, this is unprecedented because we don't know what sort of fine or ban could be handed out. But basically, this is to do with what happened at Everton 6 months ago when he walked off the pitch at Goodison Park. A fan had their phone out and he smacked it to the ground. He received a police caution for that, and the FA, in their ultimate wisdom, decided last week to charge him with an FA charge as well 6 months later. So Cristiano Ronaldo has until, a week on Monday to answer this charge. Obviously, if he accepts it, he could well receive a ban or a fine. If he doesn't accept it, he could face an increased ban or fine. So we will find out. That will be after the Everton game, so it's not going to affect us for those Man City or Everton games. But also in the same article, it says that Manchester United Football Club are baffled by this charge by the FA, handed out 6 months after the incident took place. So, yes, the fact that Marcus Rashford and Anthony Martial are both back and training and should be back very soon, obviously lessens any ban that Ronaldo gets, but it doesn't negate the fact that it's just ridiculous. And the fact that Manchester United are baffled by it, we were baffled by it when we spoke about it last week. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And I think because it's Manchester United and because it's Cristiano Ronaldo, we are going to end up with a match ban. And I think we've got Newcastle at home or something, which will probably be a game that United go, you know what, we'll take that ban for that. But yeah, ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And good to hear that Manchester United are baffled with it as much as us. But I think we all know what's coming with this. If I was Ronaldo, I'd be absolutely furious about the ban, about the charge. But if he challenges it, the FA tend to win anything that is challenged against them. It's like when you remember when the red cards, we don't really get it anymore because I think clubs have learnt about it. Remember when you used to get red cards and clubs used to challenge them? To be honest, it was more before VAR. I think since VAR's coming in, a lot of red cards get rescinded. But there used to be a time where you'd get a red card and you'd challenge it because you get a 3-match ban and you'd end up with a 4-match ban because the FA were almost like, who are you to challenge us? So I think Ronaldo and United have got to tread carefully here because I think the FA are looking to make an example of Cristiano Ronaldo and United. And I fully expect that they'll probably hand out a ridiculous match ban instead of a fine, but we'll have to wait and see. Farhan says, would Kim Min-jae be a good option for us? He has been phenomenal for Napoli and also has a release clause worth between 40 and 50 million for next summer, says Farhan. There's a Welcome to Members Club, Avinawaba. There are plenty of options out there at centre-back. I don't profess to want to start doing videos about which centre-back we should go for, but there are a few. I mean, I think Chelsea have pretty much got Vardiel from Leipzig. I wouldn't mind him, especially because he's a left footer. Timber's a player that we know Ten Hag wants. But I think the interesting thing for me about this period with Manchester United and Erik Ten Hag is that we will always have ideas like Kim Min-jae and, you know, I really like Bella Kotchup at Southampton, and in a year's time that deal might be possible, but you'll probably end up at Liverpool because it's Southampton. But there are, and Premier League proven, and again I think Bella Kotchup might be left-footed, but he might be right, I'm not 100%. So there are players out there, but I think with Erik Ten Hag, as we've seen with Malacia, is he's an obsessive, methodical manager, and given time, I think he's the sort. Look, I think with Solskjaer, I had absolutely no faith that he knew anything about any player outside of the Premier League, and I'd count the Championship at that as well. I don't think he knew anyone in the Championship. He was a very inexperienced coach doing a job that was way above his grade. We were just very inexperienced. McKenna was inexperienced. Carrick was inexperienced. They all could end up being good in 10 years' time, but I think they all came into it very wet behind the ears. With Erik Ten Hag, and you felt as a fan that you were talking about players that the manager and the coaches probably didn't know anything about. With Erik Ten Hag, we can talk about players, but I would imagine I pretty much know he will know that player that we're talking about and know probably 5 or 6 other players in that position that we're not talking about. I think we've got a manager/coach now who knows what he's on about, who consumes football and knows a lot about a lot of different leagues. So I think you've just got to trust the manager and see what he comes out with, really, because I think there are some good centre-backs out there. But as we know with United, the big problem that I think Ten Hag will have to hurdle is the one that we've had with Casemiro. We've been talking about needing a centre defensive midfielder for 3 or 4 years, and they finally got one at the end of this transfer window. We do need a centre-back. I think I and many of you are in tune sometimes with things, and we've spoken about the need for I remember going into the last 4 transfer windows saying my priority signing would be a centre defensive midfielder, and 3 of those windows we didn't even buy one. So my personal priority position at the moment, my personal priority position at the moment is a bit left field, but it is a centre-back. I think we need another centre-back. I know we need a striker, and I know we need another right-back, and I know that the goalkeeping situation needs to be looked at. And I am very worried about what happens to that midfield if Eriksen's not fit. But I also am very worried because it's the best performing area of the pitch at the moment. I think United's best performing area at the moment is the centre-backs. It's given the solidity and platform for the rest of the team to go and get results. We are just one bad, tackle or stretch away from that whole team falling apart. I really do think if we lost Martinez or Varane, we would fall apart very quickly. So that is a weakness in the team that I think we've got to solve it, and we've got to solve it very quickly. but I don't necessarily think we will buy a centre-back in the summer, because I think and I know that many Man United managers over the last 10 years have said, I'd really like a player in this position and this position and this position, and then the board will go, well, you're only getting 2 instead of 4. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. We need another centre-back if we can get Maguire to leave, says Michael Christian. I don't really care if Harry Maguire leaves or Victor Lindelof leaves. It's just about bringing in the right profile of centre-back. And at the end of the day, I can't remember how old Victor Lindelof is off the top of my head, and I'm sure someone in the chat will let us know, but Harry Maguire's going to be 30 this year. He's never going to get quicker, and he's never going to turn faster. So, you know, I've seen bottles of milk turn sour quicker than Harry Maguire can turn. It's not a strength of his. He's not particularly quick. I've seen Victor Lindelof get outpaced by, you know, what's somebody who's not particularly quick and outmuscled as well. So I think when we focus on Maguire, we should also focus on Lindelof. They both have their weaknesses compared to what Martinez and Varane offer. So in my opinion, you know, I can think of 5 or 6 clubs that are good clubs that Harry Maguire could play for and play well. I think Harry Maguire would be good at Spurs. People can disagree, but I think Harry Maguire would play well at Spurs because they play with 3 centre-backs. I think at Chelsea, he'd probably do better as well. Football's very interesting. Valverde or De Jong, says Skeletons. Well, I'll let the chat decide that. But I think football's really interesting because I think if you consume and watch football, and you watch a lot of football, like I'm really looking forward to the watch along at 12 because I'm doing the Arsenal Spurs game, which you can watch with me on That's Football. But you're going to get 2 very different styles there. If Spurs play with the 3 centre-backs and Arsenal play with the 2 centre-backs and Arsenal win, is that because they've got a better formation? No. Different formations are what make football really interesting, because there is absolutely no doubt that Lindelof and Maguire suit a 3 centre-back system better than a 2 centre-back high-line system. But just because you're not getting picked for Man United doesn't mean that you can't play for Spurs or England. And I think people get lost in this. You know, Harry Maguire makes a foul in the penalty box and gives away a penalty and England lose. So suddenly, I told you, he's crap for United and he's crap for England. But the reason he's been good for England is because England predominantly play with 3 centre-backs, and that provides Maguire with the ability to showcase his assets, and his weaknesses are compensated by the fact that there are 2 other centre-backs near him. One of them that's got ridiculous pace in Kyle Walker. So Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof are very good centre-backs, but they're not part of what we want to do. Like, they wouldn't be suitable for Liverpool. So I think people are a little bit too eager sometimes to write players off and go, oh, they're just a bag of shit. And sometimes you've actually got to analyse it. Harry Maguire was bought by Manchester United because he played really well in a defensive setup of Gareth Southgate that showcased his strengths. And at Manchester United, I don't think the fans would ever take to us playing 3 centre-backs. It's just not that. So, yeah, as I say, I think that Maguire and Lindelof could end up staying at United for another 5 years. But ultimately, I think for their game, they need to go and find clubs that are going to get the best out of them. And I think for Man United's future, we need to buy centre-backs that are suitable for us. And that's the same with Wan-Bissaka at right-back. Wan-Bissaka's not a bad right-back. He just doesn't suit the way our full-backs are going to work at Manchester United. And I think that is something that I think is a little bit unfair in the criticism of our players sometimes, is that, you know, some of our players I think are absolutely trash. I don't think they're good enough. But some of them I just think are in the wrong club. And Wan-Bissaka doesn't get mentioned, but he's a good right back. He's just not the way that Ten Hag uses his right backs. I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka would be brilliant for West Ham. Because they play quite defensive, quite rigid, quite structured. David Moyes, and he'd be very, very good. Although he's not as good going forward as Koufal is, but I still think he'd do really, really well there. And Elanga for me is a player that if he was in the Championship scoring goals for Birmingham City, everyone would be going, great. He's just in the wrong environment, Elanga. He's having to be over promoted because we don't have enough strikers, that we can't let him go on loan and develop. So sometimes you can look at players and go, look, yeah, they're not very good in a United shirt, or they're sat on the bench, they're rubbish. They're not rubbish. They're just not. They don't suit the environment anymore. Hi, Mark, says the Bad Joker. Thank you very much, mate. So let's have a go. I just wanted to quickly talk about this because we've got a big game at the weekend. Tomorrow, in fact, it's the Manchester derby. It's Manchester City against Manchester United. I feel that maybe we'll get this in the embargoed section tonight at 10:30 if you're up. There will be a second part to Ten Hag's press conference. We'll get you those quotes out a little bit later on the United Stand Twitter account. But I really hope that we get, and it'll be too late anyway. I think the shame about the embargoed section is that it's always the night before the game, and the first part of the press conference yesterday for Ten Hag was good, but it was too much focused on questions about Harry Maguire, really, to be honest with you. I'd like to have seen a few more questions about Pep Guardiola and keep the Maguire thing back for the embargoed section, because there's such a story here. And I've mentioned this a few times, and I don't know what you think. That do you think Bellingham is going to La Liga or the Premier League for skeletons? I think he'll come to the Premier League. And are you really going to the overlap, says El Nasser? No comments. No, I'll probably get kicked out, to be honest. I basically, Gary Neville's doing a live overlap in November, and I replied and said, because I love Gary. I think he thinks I don't like him, but I love Gary Neville. I just don't think he gets my sense of humour at all. And I basically replied to him and said, I'll be at the front row, love. But yeah, we'll see. Anyway, back to what I was going to say. I think this Pep. Does anybody else feel this as well? Remember, I don't know whether it's an age thing. I don't think it is. But I remember, probably, I don't even know how many years ago. Shall we say 5, and then some of you lot will say 10. Remember when these games used to be massive, like Man United, Liverpool, Man United, Man City, and it's not. I don't think it's. Maybe it is. Maybe it's because of the drop off from Man United a little bit. But even the North London derby today, I don't know whether. Maybe it's the way we consume football. Maybe 10 years ago, everything was Sky Sports, so you just had it on all the time. Maybe now, because of things like the United Stand, and there's so many platforms out there that it's difficult to get that hype. But you really just don't seem to get the hype anymore for these games. And I'm hyped up about it, but I don't feel that we get the media build-up hype for these games anymore. It seems a little bit too, a little bit too friendly. And I remember Arsenal United, Sir Alex Ferguson versus Wenger. You'd be talking about it for weeks ahead, and then it'd just be so massive, bubbling up. Martin, welcome to the Members Club. But I think with Pep and Ten Hag, there's a real story there that I really haven't, and I've seen any really massive build up towards this game. Pep Guardiola is a massive part of Ten Hag's CV. He was his reserve team coach at Bayern Munich years before he was at Ajax. And Erik Ten Hag definitely will be a disciple of Amsterdam origin football with your Johan Cruyffs and Michels and people like that, if you know your research. But it's also Pep Guardiola, and there's such a big story there that's not really been, and I don't really understand why it's not really been sort of expanded on. And it's interesting because Erik Ten Hag was speaking about Pep Guardiola in some of the very few comments I found about it, and he basically said that Pep Guardiola is one of the most successful managers, but he's done it in the right way. And I think that's a throwaway statement, but also it's quite an interesting statement that you can be successful. And there's no doubt that Ten Hag admires Pep Guardiola. We can like that or not, and it's nothing to do with his hairline. He loves Pep Guardiola and what he's done for football. But there's so little quotes about Ten Hag on Pep and Pep on Ten Hag in the build-up to this game, and I think it's a shame because when he says he's a successful manager, but he's been successful in the right way, that's a massive endorsement of Pep Guardiola, and we all know that. But it's also a massive insight into Erik Ten Hag and what he's all about. I said yesterday after the press conference, I really like the way, before any game, no matter who it is, before this game, we're going there to win. That has to be the aim. But when he talks about success and then success in the right way, it's a real indicator of what type of a personality and type of a manager that we have. That I think with Jose Mourinho, it was about winning and winning. no matter how you win. With Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, it was about, please let me win any game. And then with Ten Hag, we've got winning and doing it in the right way. And we're nowhere near that yet. But to have a manager where you know they're obsessed with winning, but they're also obsessed with doing it in the right way, hopefully, fingers crossed, we've got a really, really big future ahead of us with this coach. Where do you think Man United will finish in La Liga? So Skeletons, they're not in the La Liga. And Manny, welcome to Members Club. And Martin, welcome as well. Skeletons, you're asking some very odd questions this morning. Lack of hype is partly because managers are all too nice about each other now, says Fartini. Yeah, yeah. I mean, oh God, I could talk to you for ages about that, but I do think that it is interesting. There's probably a little bit too much of that goes on now. A little bit too much respect, as far as I'm concerned. I think that the Tuchel Conte thing a few weeks ago was brilliant, and they both got an FA charge for it. So, yeah. I think, look, the FA, the Premier League, UEFA, they all want fair play and things to be done in the right way. But, people work hard all week. They go to school all week. This is a passionate, competitive sport. And I think there's nothing wrong with competitive rivalry at all, which is why the Arsenal-Man United games were so bloody good in the late 90s, early noughties, because you get your arguments in the tunnel, on the pitch, on the touchline. It really, really mattered to Wenger and Sir Alex, and I just don't know whether we can replicate that anymore. I don't know. I wish we could. I really wish we could. But yeah, it doesn't. We just don't seem to get that anymore. Has the Premier League become a little bit bland in that sense? It's the best league in the world. We get some fantastic football, but do we really get the harsh competition? And we don't see it with Klopp and Pep either, do we? We don't see it. As Zero Blade says, the FA are a joke. They're not allowed to be passionate anymore, which I think is true. But look, I like the fire. I'm not an arsonist, but I like the fire. I like the fire in the passion. It's a Manchester derby, and I think we will see it on the pitch. I think there's certain players that Martinez, McTominay, if Casemiro gets on, Delo. There's some players in our team that will get stuck in tomorrow, and we need that. We need that. We need that competitive element. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching. Nice morning show this morning. Lots to talk about as we build towards the Manchester derby. Two things to tell you. I'm live at midday on That's Football for the North London derby. I'm sure you'll be watching like that. The parents don't like aggression and passion. Sad, says Chris Naylor. And I'm also live on Talk Sport tonight, national radio. It'll be on YouTube as well, 7:30 till 9 o'clock. You can call in and get involved with that as well. So thanks everyone for watching. Big day tomorrow, but join me for the North London derby as well. In fact, when I end this stream, it will probably take you straight to the live chat there, so you know where it is. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks to all the new members. If you are a member, don't forget to check the Ericsson video. It's really good. It'll only take 10 minutes to watch, and I'll speak to you all in a bit.